What is up? It's March. It's March Madness time, people. The sick man is back. We are at week 11. 11, one of my lucky numbers. So this podcast, this specific one, should be a good one because we have a lot of stuff to discuss. And we are going to be talking, we'll be breaking down the Southwest and Central Division. But first, we're going to head out west, well, to Middle America and the Southwest. And we are going to check in with the Dallas Mavericks in the heart of Texas. Jay Wild. That's Texas basketball. Right now, they went 3-1 this week. And they sitting about 500. Tells me about that. Tells me about the Mavs.
Oh, man. Matt's having flashbacks to your northern accent last week. Oh, man. Well, look, yeah, Dallas, man. I don't know if you remember 3 weeks ago we talked about these guys, but I said they were going to be 500 the next time we came back around. And we're here. Ooh, so we're now 500. I sort of predicted which games they were going to win and stuff. I was wrong about the Portland one, but only because Dame Dollar did his thing in the final seconds again. But ultimately, yeah, I mean, they've been, they've been playing so well. Mainly it's been because of Luka, of course. Ultimately, from a team perspective, their three-point percentage has just got so much better. Up until 3 weeks ago, they were dead last in three-point percentage. But within the last 3 weeks and their last 10 games that they've played, they've actually moved themselves up to 22nd overall in the season. But they've shot 40% in the last 10 games, which is a major improvement up from 34. So yeah.
Talk about game-winning shots. You said Dame Dollar did it to the Mavs. Well, Luka did it to the Celts. If you guys didn't see, he hit a game winner, which looks pretty identical to the one he hit in the playoffs when the bubble against the Clips, which I like. So it's sort of like his go-to move, and we always talk about how good Luka's step back is. It's his patented move. Waldy, where do you think Luka ranks for you in terms of clutch shot makers? You know, he's made a couple now. He's a really good decision maker. Where does he rank? Is he ranking like top 10? We put him in top 5?
In the league right now?
Yeah.
Oh, definitely top 10. I think if you're putting together a short list of guys you want taking the last shot, with only a few seconds left on the clock, you've obviously got to have LeBron James, you've got to have Damian Lillard, Luka. Who else am I missing? Somebody else I had.
Steph.
What's that?
Steph Curry,
exactly.
Andre Iguodala as well. You know, shout out Max Cullen.
Yeah. And of course Kyrie as well. So yeah, I cheated there. I gave you 6, but I definitely put Luka in the top 10 for sure of players in the league right now. He's done it in the playoffs as well as regular season, which is just it's a double down on that rating in my opinion. Somebody else, the emergence of Jalen Brunson, I just want to shout out as well, because talk about that Celtics game. He hit 5 for 7 threes. He had a really big fourth quarter, so he was coming in clutch for them. So he's really kind of emerged as that replacement guy for the hole that was left by Seth Curry, basically. So it's been really nice to see him do bits. Porzingis has been in an outdated day, which is I think is just going to be the way it's going to be for the rest of the season, to be honest, because I think, like some players, he thought that the league was starting a lot later. So he's really playing his way into shape, and there's not a lot of training sessions either at the moment. So that's kind of tough. But all in all, it's been going a lot better, hence the record. Their next 2 games are against the Magic and OKC. So you'd like to think that they're either going to stay 500 or be over 500, within the next 2 games.
Yeah, really good production from Jalen Brunson and Tim Hardaway. Something that the Mavs needed, a bit of consistency, especially in the depth position, and Porzingis came back against the Nets. They had a really encouraging win. Yeah, there's no KD, there's no Kyrie, but they still beat a Nets team which is rolling at the moment. I'm going to go a bit off topic, guys, for the Mavs. So Myles Garrett, if you guys don't know, he's an NFL defensive end. Ed will know because he's obviously a massive NFL fan. He's a defensive end for the Cleveland Browns, right? So Myles Garrett is actually, he's 6'4" and 272 pounds, okay? He's massive, right? And there was a video that surfaced of him playing basketball, and he tweeted out to Mark Cuban and was like, do the Mavs need a big guard? And this guy is stacked, right? And he's dunking all over the place, just a freak athlete. So my question to all the GMs is that, which person from another sport do you think could make it and make that transition into the NBA if you had to pick one?
Let's just hope it's not Zlatan Ibrahimovic versus LeBron James, but I'll let everyone else have a go.
Yeah, let's hope that one doesn't happen. Dear, Zlatan.
That's a good question.
If anyone hasn't seen that video, by the way, it's like Zion on steroids. It's ridiculous.
I'm just going to send it now.
I couldn't believe he was dunking it. I was like, what is going on? It's insane.
The defensive ends, in terms of like their raw ability and what they can do on the field, is just insane. How quick they are and how big, like the size of them, nuts.
You know who I think would be funny to see? Akinfenwa. Point guard going up against Steph Curry.
But Wildy and Bray, Bray might know, but Akinfenwa basically plays in the championship for Wickham, and he's a beast. He's like the strongest player on FIFA.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, look him up. He's a really cool personality. That's good. Any more?
I'd throw out Usain Bolt. I think that'd be jokes. Look at the size of him. He's a pretty tall guy and he'd fucking sprint across the court.
Yeah.
Matt, if you haven't seen it, he actually played in the Celebrity Game and actually dunked. So yeah.
My only thing with him though is because he's just used to running. He's like weirdly uncoordinated. I found with a basketball, like he just didn't know how to carry it and run at the same time. Like it was a bit weird. But in a similar vein though, like definitely you got to pick someone with some size. I'm gonna go with Mario Itoje from the England rugby squad, who is, I believe, I think he's about 6'8", and he is known for having like long arms. He just gets on everything, and obviously being a rugby player is just insanely strong and surprisingly quick for someone of that size. So I reckon Super Mario would be a good pick.
And also actually on the Usain Bolt comment as well, he's a massive football fan, and I think he had a contract with Borussia Dortmund. I think a couple of years back, he actually played a couple of games football with them, and actually had a professional contract in Australia for a little while as well. For some, I think it was probably a publicity stunt. He didn't look particularly that good anyway. I'm going to stick to NFL because I think NFL, you just got all these ridiculous athletes. And I always thought NBA athletes were probably some of the best in the world. But when I saw just the build and the athleticism of some of the NFL players, it's so hard to look past them. I think one person I'll say is probably the biggest freak in the NFL, which is DK Metcalf. He plays wide receiver. So as you can imagine, you can sort of imagine what position that's like and what he has to do. But he is built like an absolute tank. He is lean, much more lean than Myles Garrett is, and has got so much power and athleticism. He would be really hard to stop. I think Zion will be a pretty good comparison for him as well. He looks less jacked than Myles Garrett, but still can wiggle. And I've actually just dropped in a group chat the video of Myles Garrett playing basketball, which is something to behold.
You got to watch it, man. It is scary. It's terrifying. If the league goes the way of like Zion builds, yeah.
The fact that someone that size can jump like that is, I'm like, that shouldn't be allowed. It should be impossible for that to even be a thing. Like,
I started watching a bit more Pelicans games because I did want to see what Zion does and just how the Pelican team play. And watching Zion made me sad because Zion on offense is what Magic hoped Aaron Gordon would be, because Zion can play make. He can do a lot of stuff on the ball that I didn't know he could do. And I was like, wow, this is really hard to watch, but he is going to be so good and so good on different levels of the floor.
Let's stay in Texas, but let's head over to another team who haven't had a lot of games this week. They went 1-1, still a really good record and a really good season overall, apart from the All-Star snub from DeRozan, 17-12, the San Antonio Spurs. Ed, take it away.
Yes, so Spurs had quite a bunch of games that they had to skip out on. Their yearly rodeo schedule got cut down. So overall, the last time we spoke, they were 13-10. Now they're 17-12. So they went 4-2. And as Alex said last week, they were 1-1. During that 4-2 run, they lost, though they split 2 games against Golden State, which is something we spoke about last time we spoke about the Spurs. And they had big wins against the Hawks and the Pelicans most recently. Against Golden State in game 1, actually, Jamal Murray had a really good stat line. I'm not sure if this is one of Alex's stat line of the week, but I just stole it from him. DeJounte Murray had 27 points, 10 assists, and 8 steals, which is the most steals in a game this year, which is very nice for the rookie. But funny enough, actually, in the second game against Golden State, the team got 2 steals. We all know that the Warriors are prone to turnovers, and it's been a trademark of the Steve Kerr era because of their ball movement and because of their risky passing. They are susceptible to quite a few turnovers, and I saw that when Golden State played the Magic a couple of weeks ago. I was like, they love a little turnover, don't they, Golden State? And it can be Draymond and it can be Steph just doing funny stuff with the ball. And then we get to the OKC game, where, as you guys saw, because we posted it on our social medias, Lou Dort had a wide open 3. Shout out Patty Mills for leaving his man wide open to double team Al Horford. Great play there. And then Lou Dort hit that open 3. And that was their first game back over after their protocol, and they could start playing games again. But they were without quite a few players, one of which being DeMar DeRozan, who literally just came back last game. He wasn't a COVID scratch. His father passed away and he took some time off, and he played against, who's the last game against? Oh, the Pelicans. And he had a bounce back game, which is really good for him, just to get that personal tragedy put aside for a second. He got 32 points, 11 assists, and 1 turnover, which is amazing for him. And it's his second 30-point, 10 assist game of the year, which is really nice for that young Spurs team.
In that Pelicans win, they actually got out rebounded 38-52 as well. And LaMarcus Aldridge turned up in a big way. But let's stay on DeMar for now, because I was doing some insight around how he's performing this year. So the Spurs are actually a minus 3.8 net rating when DeRozan is off the court, which is no surprise. But Ed, when he's playing with Derek White, he's plus 12 in net ratings. So my question to you is, could this be the start of like a new small ball for the Spurs? Because Murray still is playing well. Could they potentially do that? So
ideally, I think what Pop wants is he wants all the young kids on the floor alongside DeMar DeRozan. So DeMar DeRozan is the key primary ball handler, but of course Derek White and DeJounte can also do some ball handling. So it's not primarily on the young guys. So DeMar can take over the responsibilities when it's need to. Now, one of the key things that has happened, which you touched upon just now, was the LaMarcus Aldridge factor. LaMarcus Aldridge was injured for the past 6 or 7 games, and the past 2 games when the Spurs have been back, he's been coming off the bench. So that helps all the young players get on the floor, and it makes them play a style of basketball, which is much more Spurs-esque. I was looking at when I'm watching the Spurs, I realized again their ball movement is still key, and I tried to find a stat that would really highlight this, and I found one that's which is Spurs have got the best assist to turnover ratio in the NBA, which is 2.25, and only one other team have got above 2-point assist to turnover ratio, which is really good for the Spurs. So by having LaMarcus off the court and some other ball players and ball handlers, it allows them to play a different style of basketball, and having Derek White and DeMar does help that. So I can definitely see that being a thing and what Pop wants to do moving forward. And Aldridge would work super nicely on the bench, coming off against second units who's absolutely cook, because he can be a liability on defense, and Jakob Poeltl provides them a lot more defensive solidity. So overall, hopefully it's something that does work for the Spurs. And you know what? They could be a sleeper pick in the playoffs. They could be nice to watch in the playoffs. I'm just saying.
Anything can happen, especially in this situation where there's no fans. Hopefully, we get the fans back for the playoffs because that's like a massive advantage for places like Utah. You know, great place to play.
I mean, but because of the way our picks are set up, there's definitely 3 tiers of teams. There's the first tier, which is going to be our first pick, second round of picks, and third round of picks. Spurs could make a push into that second round of picks that we might select in the playoffs. I'm just saying.
Well, we know that they will be prepared because Pop will have them prepared. Also, another thing around DeRozan is actually he's hit nearly as many threes as last season, and he's got career highs in assists and free throw percentage. So yeah, good for you, DeMar. You know, you got snubbed, but we're not snubbing you on this podcast. I'll tell you that much. Yeah. Let's Ed, I know you briefly spoke about Zion. Let's head over to Bourbon Street with the Pels. Speak to my man George. Pels 14 and 19 overall, 1-2 this week. How are you feeling about everything going on in New Orleans?
So it's a mix, really. The main reason why I say that, although I remember, like, right at the beginning, I was saying how I was all concerned with their performances and how nothing seems to be going quite right. But I feel like they have made improvements of this, which is good news, which I am generally happy with. However, it's those, even though they have made those improvements, it doesn't seem like it's been enough for the team. So as Bray says, like, does it get to that point where if the team isn't at the point where you want it, do you start thinking about trades? And I think trades have started to pop into the team's heads in terms of like heart and ball for their next move. So it's shaky ground, really. Yeah.
JJ Redick actually spoke about this and said that him and Lonzo, all they talk about is trade rumors, which is quite funny. Yeah, the main man, we got to focus on him. Ed brought him up, Zion. What I've noticed from Zion is that he's initiating the offense. You know, he's bringing the ball up 11 possessions a game. And they're also doing this pick and roll action with JJ Redick as the screener, and he's screening directly, so Zion's got more of a downhill push when he's driving towards the basket. But he's fourth highest in point per possession as the roll man within the pick and roll, but he's only 19th in attempts. So, Jordan, my question to you is: do you prefer him as the ball handler initiating the offense, or would you have him as a roll man?
For me at this point, I would prefer to have him as a role man. The main reason why I said that is basically down to evidence of the Spurs games, the way they defended him when he had the ball in his hands. Even though he has proven to have results from that, as proven from the Spurs game where he went 8 and 15 overall. Now that defenses of getting that strategy of creating a wall and making it a lot harder for him, I think even though you can see that's the way they want to develop him into that game, I think it needs to be more gradual instead of just throwing him straight into the pool and let's work on it from there. I think it needs to be a more gradual scenario, especially if they want to make that push to make it into the playoffs as well, as soon as possible. I think with that being said, it's evident it's going to be hard because even though Zion, great passer as well, I think right now on the team, they're lacking other players which can punish the team for like helping out on defense to defend against Zion.
Yeah, that's a great point. From what I've seen from Zion in terms of initiating the offense, I think it's really encouraging, and the Pelicans have got a good, bright future. Just another point as well: the Bucks game, him and Giannis were going back and forth with each other. Really fun matchup. And Lonzo Ball, you got to shoot the ball. You're down 3, and he's passing it away. I'm like, just shoot the ball. It's like Chris Paul. Yeah, but and Lonzo Ball is much improved from 3-point line as well. So be confident, man. Be confident. Cool. Let's move on to the Grizz. Another team at 500 and also 500 for this week because they went 2-2. Lancashire Lambert, talk to me.
Yeah, so the Grizzlies, like I said, 2-2 this week. They are currently 10th in the West. And last 4 games, so they lost against the Mavericks, 102-92. Although Morant had a decent night, scoring 22 points, 9 assists, the Grizzlies actually only shot 19% from the 3-point versus the Mavericks shooting 37%. However, they did manage to beat the Clippers in their next game, and they were 58% from 3 in that very next game. So great turnaround there. They had 6 players scoring double figures, including Tyus Jones, who got 20 points in 15 minutes off the bench, which was his career high. Valanciunas chipping in with 16 points, 15 rebounds. And all this while they kept Paul George and Kawhi Leonard to a combined 30 points. So great work on the defense as well. They obviously lose the next game against the Clippers, 119-99, but there's no shame in that, in splitting 2 games with the Clips. And then they go and absolutely demolish the Rockets the other night. So in 133-84, it was the biggest margin of victory in Grizzlies history. The 3rd worst loss for the Rockets, as I'm sure Braves would have touched on in their history. The Grizzlies bench scored 85 points. The Rockets team scored 84. So
that was my stat. That was my stat of the week.
Yeah, there you go. I've knitted for you, but
no, it's fine. It needs to be brought up.
Yeah. And then all this, like outscoring the Rockets by 49 points. Morant and Valanciunas, who usually combine for around about 30 odd points per game, they only got 6 points each. So the 2 biggest scorers didn't even score that much at all. So it's just unbelievable effort from them. They got like a season high 56 rebounds to go with 16 steals in that game, remarkably high. And I just got to shout out the pressure on the Rockets shooting from the 3-point, from behind the arc. They managed to keep the Rockets to a really, really respectable 4 from 45 from 3-point, 9% shooting from behind the arc. It's top defense.
Oh, that's so bad. That's so bad because you think you've shot like a lot of threes. You haven't made it. You wouldn't shoot 45. Surely you wouldn't.
Classic Rockets. Classic.
Overall, the Rockets shot 27.7% from the floor, the lowest mark in NBA history. It was bad. They got waxed.
We're going to talk about the Rockets, but Matt, there's another point as well. Desmond Bane, he didn't play that much. He had 50.7 rebounds. He was a plus 38.
Yeah. I was going to actually give a shout out to Desmond Bane because even though he actually started, which is his only 4th part of the season. And 15.7 rebounds, 3 steals, plus 38 is pretty good. And in his rookie season, he's averaging 10 points per game, 48% from the field, 45% from 3-point line, 86% from the free throw. So he's doing all right. He's a nice little player who's chipping along. And then Justice Winslow looks like he's come back from injury. He's played in 4 of the last 5 games. They're actually his first appearances this season, and that's like another 10 points a game to add on to the Grizzlies and 5 rebounds, which he's been having throughout his career. So Grizzlies probably going to be thereabouts for that playing spot come the end of the year.
Yeah, they've also moved JV to the bench for some games. They're sort of testing out a couple of lineups. But I actually want to speak about the Grizzlies defense because in January they ranked 1st in the league, and in February they ranked 26th for defense. So massive change up in terms of it. Do you think that's just, I don't know, is that a small amount of data to really read too much into, or what do you think's gone wrong for the Grizzlies? Has it been injuries?
I think just from like looking at their results in general, if they win, they win big. If they lose, they lose big. It's not really a problem come like at the end of the day, you either win or you lose a game, don't you? But obviously, like in the grand scheme of things, you want a better defense, etc. But it's not too much of a concern, and they have been affected by injuries of late. But yeah, I don't see any issues in terms of the Grizzlies defense. They'll get there. It's the main thing I'd say is I'd like to see them score a little bit more. I'd say, considering that they do have a little bit of like sparks of talent, but yeah, I think defense can be there again. It's probably just a little bit of a blip at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely scored a lot against the Clippers. That's probably, I think, their best win of the season, because the Rockets won. Rockets are one of the worst teams, but the Clips game, blew them out by near 30. And that was sort of, you saw the potential of what the Grizzlies could be. They'd be more consistent with that. Massive threat in the future, massive threat. So let's move on to the Rockets. Salt Bray, I'm not going to give you spoilers here. He's not had a good week. It's been real rough for him. Our thoughts and prayers are with Salt Bray right now, because he's locked in that 5th position pretty much. I think so.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Rockets. Can we be positive? You've gone 0-4 this week. You're on a massive losing streak, and you're sitting at 11-21. Bray.
Let's take the negative first, and we'll move on to the positives. So we talked about the Rockets 3 weeks ago, and they haven't won a game since. It's ridiculous. It's 11 games, the longest losing streak for the Rockets since 2001. So 20 years. It's not been this bad. So not really, not quite. They get absolutely waxed by the Grizzlies. They haven't had Christian Wood this entire time, and Wall and Oladipo don't play back-to-backs. So the only player on their team who's played all 29 games is, or however many games, is Jay Sean Tate, who is an undrafted rookie, who does actually look quite good, but I'll come on to that in a bit. So yeah, it's not great. They're obviously in full tank mode. It's a shame because they were looking a bit frisky. Everyone was trying hard. Wood was amazing. He was going to be an all-star. I really do think. And then he gets injured and they fall off the wagon. So yeah, really big shame. And like, obviously they're playing small ball now without him, which is tough. And honestly, these 11 games they've lost, it's not been a tough schedule. It's been a real easy one. But that's the bad. And interesting news though. So the first one, DeMarcus Cousins, has been waived. Basically, he was unhappy about coming off the bench for Christian Wood. My question to everyone else is: DeMarcus Cousins a starter on any team in the NBA?
Who's the worst team in the league? Who's the worst team in the league?
I think he is.
Yeah, he is.
I think he is. The reason
Brooklyn.
The reason is I think there's not enough depth at the center position. I was trying to think of one of the worst teams in the league, and sorry, Matt, I thought of the Cavs, because the Cavs are really bad, but they've got Jared Allen. But if I look at maybe other contenders, I'm trying to think of where he fits in. Obviously, Ed says Brooklyn.
I think Ed hit on something more prominent there, in that it's not about him going to the worst team. It's about him going to one of the better teams, like someone like Brooklyn, and contributing.
Yeah, but would he start over DeAndre Jordan?
I don't think he would.
I don't think he would.
I ain't been rating DeAndre Jordan for years now. Like, he has not been. His defense isn't what it used to be, and that was his bread and butter. And he doesn't provide anything on offense anyway. Like,
the reason why I might take Boogie over DeAndre Jordan in terms of a starting lineup is that DeAndre Jordan relies on his athleticism when he was at the peak of his powers, whereas Boogie's always been very grounded. So even though he's in later stages of his career, he could still be more effective and do the things that he was able to do earlier on.
Could Boston do with him?
No. See, the thing about Boogie is that he does not play defense. He is a slow center who has no athleticism and doesn't play defense, which is like most teams will just go, you know what? Don't need a center. We'll play Jay Sean Tate center, which is what the Rockets have done. Honestly, it's age of small ball, and I'm not entirely sure if anyone picks Boogie up. It's really sad because the guy is literally 30. Like, he's 30. He feels like he's been in the league forever. But he's had an Achilles and what was it? I think it was an ACL or something as well.
Yeah, it was two of the worst injuries you can have.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
So
horrible.
it's really, really tough for him. I hope he gets another chance. I don't think it will be as a starter, but yeah, so really tough for him. On the more positive note, Oladipo, it was reported today, so this is fresh news, that he was offered a 2-year, $45.2 million extension. It's the most the Rockets can offer him as an extension before the end of the season, and he turned it down. At the end of the season, the maximum amount that the Rockets could offer him, because they've got his bird rights, is 5 years at $195 million. Would any of you pay Victor Oladipo the top end of that?
No.
Computer says no.
No, but the reason he actually rejected it, Bray, is because he wanted a longer contract.
Yeah.
However, I think that's a bit of a cop-out, because if he sees what the Rockets are right now, he wants to be on a contender. Also talking about him in the locker room with the playoffs, like, oh yeah, moving to that team. Yeah, he's not going to want to be with the Rockets.
Yeah, I very much agree. Props to the Rockets for offering it, because on that contract, I think it's great. 2 years, 45. I like it very much. But the largest 4-year deal he can get is in the region of like 150. So it's just so, if he is looking for that top end, it's so much money. Honestly though, I don't know how many teams are going to want to offer him that amount of money. But it does make him a prime trade candidate now though, if the Rockets are not certain that they can hold on to him. They could trade him to a contender for some picks. So maybe someone who's just kind of on the edge and needs to make that extra move, I guess. So who knows? He could be on the move again.
Well, thanks, bro. You've taken my 2 points. So that's worked perfectly. So the Rockets definitely a lot of front office moves, even if they are losing on the court. It's a pretty bad team. So we'll see what happens in Houston. So that wraps up Southwest. Take a short break, and then we'll move to Central.